Oh, I was just about to say, speaking of not getting to please a movie audience,
Yeah.
we decided to finally watch The New Mutants. This movie was kind of infamous because it was in development hell for a while.
Yeah, and it's the release date kept getting pushed back and pushed back. I think it was supposed to come out like in 2018 or 2019.
Uh, I wish I remember what Marvel movie I saw a trailer for this in front of.
Yeah,
Uh,
and then
because it
yeah,
was earlier than you would think.
yeah, and then uh, then the big C happened, so that just pushed it back even further.
Yeah, but they released it in 2020. But I think that's because by this time, I think what probably delayed it. I know they had to do some reshoots, and I recall people. I went into this movie hearing that you could tell when certain scenes were reshot because the teen actors had visibly aged. I didn't catch that.
I didn't either. Yeah, and Ninja's wondering why we watched this movie. And
Uh,
he said my soul hurt. One of his favorite comic book runs.
yeah. So I think the other thing that killed this was that Fox. So this was like when X-Men was starting to peter out under Fox's watch.
Yeah,
They had gotten a second burst of life with the new class version, and
yeah.
then it lost momentum again because they can't keep nice things going. And then I think they knew that Disney was buying them out and didn't care about this movie.
Yeah, and that was certainly true with Dark Phoenix. Yeah, where just like they just kind of put something together there and threw it out in theaters.
Yeah, and so yeah, Ninja has a better perspective on this particular storyline than we do. So my experience with the New Mutants comics was my local library had some of the later run. It was things like when the death of Cypher and things like that. So I don't
Uh,
know where exactly that lines up in the run. So,
yeah,
and I also know a lot of these characters from when they were in Peter David's run of like first run of X Factor and his second run of X Factor, actually, in the case of some of them.
yeah. I'll be honest. Like I wasn't really the only two characters in this movie that I was familiar with were Magic and Sunspot. Because Magic had been in the X Men animated series, and then Sunspot was in X Men '97. The other characters I wasn't too familiar with because I'll be honest, I really don't know much about the New Mutants.
Yeah, the New Mutants was a weird series. It's also what gave us Rob Liefeld and X Force when they decided to have him take over and make it a bit more masculine, for God's sakes. Because he tells stories about what New Mutants was like before he took over, and he knows like the team was mostly women, and they had an issue where they were at the mall, and like I mean, as memory serves, the character work was fine. It's just that it was Ann Nesenti, who is a great comic book writer, or at least used to be.
Yeah.
But it might have been her falling into familiar patterns after too long in the book.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
Um, but let's talk about the actual movie itself here.
Yes.
So but yeah, I've never read the actual Demon Bear saga. What really struck me about this movie?
What's that?
If the Demon Bear saga is at all as presented here, did Chris Claremont just get jealous and want to have his own Raven from Teen Titans?
Probably.
Because at least as presented here, Danny Moonstar really reminded me of Raven and her relationship with Trigon,
Hmm.
in the sense of it's like, oh, she has this great ill-defined power and it's tied to some sort of demonic force that could well up from inside her.
Yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if that wasn't the case.
Yep. Okay. And Ninja confirms my memory that Chris Claremont was the one who started the series off.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And what I love about the comic book is that it's also designed to be a bit softer than X-Men in a sense, as memory serves. Like you can still have character death and things like that, but it was more about characters like relationships, and these weren't like top tier superheroes. Like heck, the reason that Cypher died was that he was a mutant whose power is that he could speak any language.
Uh,
Titans of superherodom, these weren't necessarily.
yeah. Yeah, very, very low tier.
Yeah. Now, as far as the movie itself goes, it was an interesting choice because they basically and Ninja can disagree with me here, but I think these characters were actually fairly true to the Claremont 80s run originals, but they tilted the emphasis of all the characters to be more horrific.
Yeah. And Ninja says it wasn't from the inside the demon bears, and okay,
The Demon Bears and
manifestation of the rage of the Cheyenne people, to literally race swap people.
so what? It's like if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. That one comic strip where
Yeah, no. Ooh.
but anyway, so yeah, so not having any context, I am vaguely aware that the Demon Bear exists. That is all that I knew coming in.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, so Ninja, I'm going to actually make the case that the movie is not as bad as you might have heard, and if you can accept that they changed some things, is actually worth a shot. But
Yeah.
what they did here was they basically took at least some of the initial team of 80s New Mutants characters, and he proceeds to, they played up the horror angle of all their powers.
Yeah, because so the movie starts off with with the demon bear attacking Danny Moonstone's reservation, and then she ends up waking up in this hospital, and she sees what's her name crawling through the ventilation shaft.
Oh, Rain.
Rain, yeah. And she meets the doctor. What was the doctor's name?
Doctor was
Reyes.
Dr. Reyes, yeah.
Dr. Reyes, yeah. And we basically Danny finds out that this hospital there are 4 other teenagers there, and they're all mutants, and they all have different mutant powers, and they're there because their powers manifested, and bad things happened when they did, and so now they're basically in this old asylum where they have to figure out how to control their powers, and Dr. Reyes tells them that if they can, then her superior will recommend that they move on to the next stage of the program. And of course, as one might expect, it's not all is what it seems. And of course, the other kids in this hospital start having these weird nightmarish visions,
which conveniently lets you know exactly how they ended up there.
Yeah. So, like, for instance, with Rain, she her power is starting to manifest, where she started turning into a wolf, and this Catholic priest thought she was a demon and tried to exorcise the demon, or whatever whatever he was trying to do.
Yeah, it's implied to be a bit like what happened between Rogue and Magneto and X-Men 97, except no one's going to ship that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Rain's power is that she turns into a werewolf. Or actually, she just turns into a wolf in this one.
Yeah.
In previous versions, she would have like in-between steps.
Okay.
Where she'd be more or less furry, depending on how close she wanted to be to a wolf. Danny Moonstar is our main character. I will say that Blue Hunt is perfect for this type of. It has a bit more of a Skinemax angle to it since it is horror.
Yeah. Uh,
And the camera does enjoy her.
yes.
I'm sorry, I don't know why it's suddenly the whole world wants to talk with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, and Rain was played by Maisie Williams, which is a name that is vaguely familiar, but I don't know why.
I believe she was on Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay, that explains why I'm vaguely familiar, but I don't know why.
Yeah.
Then you've got Anya Taylor-Joy playing Magic, aka Ilyana Rasputin. There's no mention of her big brother Colossus, but she was just her brain was broken by human traffickers. She needed Jason Statham to show up to help out, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's kind of the well, not kind of, she is a bitch
Yeah,
at the
she's the
beginning.
mean girl,
Yeah, she's
and
the mean girl. Yeah.
but you can tell that she's like damaged, and so she's using her harsh attitude to keep people at arm's length.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we got our two male mutants. We got Sam Guthrie, who the actor who plays him was Charlie Heaton, he's on Stranger Things. He's one of the kids.
Okay, never really watched Stranger Things, so I didn't have an opinion on him going in, but I thought he did a good job.
Yeah.
He felt true to Sam from the comics.
Yeah, and his power is that he can like basically jump and what do they call them, cannonballs? Is
Yeah,
yeah,
Cannonball. In the
cannon. Yeah,
comics, he could he could basically expel kinetic energy, and while he was in the middle of flying, he was surrounded in a bubble of energy that made him mostly invulnerable, and also why they call him Cannonball, because it looked like he was a cannonball streaking through the sky.
yeah. Okay.
In
Yeah,
this one, he hasn't quite figured things out yet, so he often does hurt himself and others.
yeah. Throughout the movie, he's got a cast on his arm, and he's got always got a like black eye and everything. And we find out that he was working in the coal mines in Kentucky with his dad, and that's when his powers came into being, and then he accidentally killed his father and the whole mining crew, caused a cave in.
Yep. And then finally, bringing up the rear in terms of screen presence and importance to the story is uh, Henrique Zaga playing Roberto da Costa, aka Roberto da Costa, aka Sunspot, whose power is that he gets fiery, and while he's fiery, he's generically invincible. Although they don't really play it, or excuse me, super strong, but they don't really play it that way here.
Yeah, there's even like a running gag where if he gets too excited, he gets too hot.
Yeah. And so, again, all these characters very much resemble their comic book counterparts. Rain is Catholic and deals with her anger and other desires. I admit I don't know the most about Danny Moonstar. I don't even know that I've ever read anything where she was a major character. Um,
Yeah,
the characters I have a strong beat on from the comics feel very true to themselves, or at least they have that it's like they read the series and understood them well enough to adapt for a very different version of things.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I overall, I think that um, given the plot of the movie where they're all stuck in this hospital, I thought that it did its job in terms of like keeping it an insular story and focusing on the characters, on their interpersonal relationships, and rather than like the overarching like universe of the X-Men franchise, which this movie is very ambiguous as to when or where it takes place in, because they
Right.
reference like, so like, they think Dr. Reyes' superior is Charles Xavier.
Right. They know who he is. They know that he sits in a wheelchair because they make reference to that. And um, yeah, they know who the X-Men are and are open to the idea of being X-Men.
Yeah. Yeah, and but then they, of course, they as Danny Moonstar's powers start manifesting more and more, the other kids start seeing the horrible visions of, for the reasons why they're in the hospital. And Dr. Reyes soon realizes that, like, she's very powerful, and something needs to be done about her.
Yep. So what's also interesting here is that this might have been meant to set up a future X-Men villain, since you find out that the place is being run by the Essex Corporation,
Yes.
which means Mr. Sinister was probably on the plans. Did he appear in the Apocalypse movie at all?
He didn't, but he was referenced, much like in this movie.
Okay, so this is kind of their Kang the Conqueror, where it's a character who was meant to be the next big thing that never really got the chance to pay off.
Yeah.
Now, I've said before on the show that I generally don't like horror movies, but this is the type of horror I can usually get into because it is more based on the characters. And I think what I usually dislike about horror is the sense that the characters don't really have the ability to affect what's going on around them.
Yeah. I noticed that. It's similar to the third Nightmare on Elm Street movie. It kind of has in that movie there, that's about a group of teens who have like different, like, mental issues and sleep issues,
Hmm.
which kind of plays into with with Freddy Krueger, because that Freddy Krueger's whole thing was going into people's dreams. So it kind of has a similar. This movie had like a similar vibe to it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, I come away from it feeling mostly positive about it. Maybe that's because my expectations were super low just based on reputation. Maybe it's because after watching Madam Web and Craven, there was nothing like this looks like Shakespeare compared to those.
Yes, it was. Yes, it is.
I'd say the only downsides to it are a bit of dodgy CGI and
Mm.
also the question of are there other mutants that the Essexes have taken, that Essex Society has taken in that have gone on to serve Mr. Sinister? Has it? Nobody here seems to have ever seen anybody graduate.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Well,
also
yeah.
there's also a few nice visual flourishes. Like they're basically there's a bubble around the whole place, like a force field kept up by Dr. Reyes.
Yeah.
That at one point, Rain takes Danny outside, and they watch the rain come down on the bubble, and that was creative to think up, and also just a nice done effect.
Yeah, it
Now,
was. Yeah.
okay, now that I'm doing the compliment, it's time for the criticism in the compliment sandwich.
Yeah.
The CGI in the back half of the movie when they start seeing monsters, a little bit dodgy.
Yeah.
Like there are some ones called the faceless ones or the faceless people or whatever Magic called them
Yeah.
that could have dealt with a little more shadow to hide them a bit.
Yes. Yeah.
And the Demon Bear doesn't look the best, although again I've seen worse in Craven recently.
Yeah.
I could at
Yeah.
least take the proceedings seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, what was I gonna say? It was something about the CG. Oh, the the dragon, little dragon puppet that Magic had.
Oh, yeah, Lockheed.
Lockheed, yeah. Lockheed wasn't wasn't Magic's, right? That was
It was Kitty Pryde's,
Kitty
yeah.
Pryde's, yeah.
Um, but also, that did occur to me as I was watching this, where I said, "Man, Kitty Pryde is never going to get a proper adaptation ever, is she?" Because unfortunately, the generation of X-Men fans who knew her is, I think, smaller than the generation of X-Men fans who would expect Jubilee to be in the same role thanks to the cartoon.
Yeah, yeah, and well, and on top of that, the actress who played Kitty Pryde in the X-Men movies isn't an actress anymore.
Oh, what does she know?
But it was well before the actor is now Elliot Page.
Oh, that's right. It was Ellen Page. Okay.
Ellen Page, yeah, and then now Elliot Page.
Well, that's just doubly unfortunate.
Yeah.
Am I misremembering? Did they have more Kitty Pryde than I thought they did? Because was that in the Next Class movies?
Well, she was in
Age of the Future Past or Days of the Future Past?
yeah, she was in Days of Future Past, yeah, and she's the one who I don't know if you've seen it, but she's the one who sends Wolverine to the
I
1970s.
have.
Yeah,
I guess I might be, if she was in other movies, I might be misremembering how, or
she
mixing
was
her role
in
but she was in the second round of them, right? Not the original set.
she was in X-Men: The Last Stand.
Okay.
Yeah, she's the one in the scene when she's running from Juggernaut through the walls.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I most of that movie I have blanked out. I will fully admit.
Well, yeah. It was such a memorable and wonderful movie. I mean,
Yeah. Uh, Anyhow, back to New Mutants.
yes,
Ag-
yes,
Again, I think if this had been ready to go in 2018, this could have actually carved out a niche for itself. Like, release it around Halloween, superhero themed horror movie. Could have sold some trade paperbacks of the original series. Um, but by 2020, I can see why they just wanted to bury this thing because
yeah,
it didn't really fit any of the universes that they would have been developing at the time.
yeah. And it was a victim of the big C, and it was a victim of the Disney buyout. Yeah, just a lot of things working against it.
Yep. I will say that um, as far as just being kind of yeah, just as far as being a character study with some horrific elements, it actually was much better than I anticipated.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought so too. And I remember getting to, kind of getting when it got close to the third act, I'm kind of going, oh, this is actually keeping my interest. I'm actually kind of enjoying myself.
Yeah, it's so yeah, sometimes if you go in with low expectations, it's hard to not meet them.
That's true. Yeah.
But also again, like this is so much better than anything Sony made with their Spider-Man universe.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Heck, if you said, DB, would you rather watch the second Spider-Verse movie or would you rather watch the New Mutants again? You know what? New Mutants has an ending.
Yes, it does.
It doesn't have an inconsistent animation style. Sidebar: when I was on the airplane going back from Vegas, someone in the seats in front of me was watching the Spider-Verse movie, and that low frame animation style just does not look good, like on a small screen, especially. Like
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
it can kind of fool you when you're watching it, but but when you also intermix it with high frame rate animation from other characters in the movie, it just seems distracting.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, I've never been a fan of that animation style. I'll be honest.
Honestly, it's like somebody took claymation with its lower frame rate and decided, what if I didn't do it with clay? And you don't have an excuse to do a slower frame rate.
Yeah. Uh, yeah.
And Nelson Ninja, I've been reading your comments. Right. Here's the thing. You are technically part of the generation of X-Men fans who would know Jubilee, but
Yeah.
you're also the type of conscientious fan who will go back and read old things from the series.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the number of people who watched the X-Men cartoon growing up, who didn't know anything about the 80s Claremont series is a very wide Venn diagram.
Yes, yes, it is.
Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, no, this movie, yeah, worked out.
yeah, yeah. If you have the streaming services, it's on Disney Plus and Hulu. Oh,
And I picked it up for $5 digitally because I don't have access to Hulu at the moment, but you can also rent it for $4. So
yeah,
I said, you know, if I actually enjoy this thing, I'll feel silly for not having spent the extra dollar to just have it permanently.
yeah. Which is what they're counting on.
Indeed.
Yeah.